Hello everyone, my name is Ashwini Sunar. I am the growth engineer at CustomFit.ai. Today we are here with Andy Lambert. Thank you, Andy, for joining us from UK. Let me give a brief introduction about Andy to our audience. He is the marketing director at ContentCal. They are helping more than 40,000 businesses globally from more than 140 countries to organize and share better marketing content. And Andy is one of the founding team member of ContentCal. Also, congratulations to you and your team to raise $6.2 million Series A funding, which has happened recently.
Thank
Without
you.
any delay, let's hear Andy's story in this marketing world. Welcome, Andy.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just a quick correction though. I'm growth director, not marketing director. We do actually have
Okay.
another head of marketing. But yeah, I'm growth. It basically means it straddles across marketing, sales, and product. Basically, it's
Okay.
across the role. Yeah.
Sure, sure. So it's our pleasure to interview you. Our audience would love to hear about you and your journey so far. Can you just please take us through your marketing life?
Yeah, definitely. It took me a
Oh,
lot longer to get into marketing than I would have liked. That was Marketing was something I wanted to do as soon as I kind of tried to start my working life. But I couldn't find a marketing role, so I ended up going into sales. That took me on a very different trajectory in B2B sales, but it was very useful as a way to build context and also to realize at that time, which was what 2008, at that time, how badly many B2B businesses marketed themselves, because typically it's all driven through sales. Marketing was seen as like a support function, um, of which I always thought that was a big missed opportunity. So as my sales career evolved, I ended up probably in about 2014, I think it was, or 2016 it was, at an organization called Workfront. Leading enterprise sales there. But one thing that struck me about work is their focus. They had a completely different approach to B2B marketing, which I think probably, 5 years later, it probably doesn't seem so radical, but for me, it seemed incredibly radical then. They invested very heavily in brand, very heavily in content, and essentially were a content-driven business, yet were a B2B, had a big B2B sales force. So a really big inbound led machine following very closely in the steps of HubSpot. So that really opened my eyes. And to be honest, I took a huge amount of learnings away from that because the following year I met who is now our CEO, Alex Packham. He had an idea for what would become ContentCal. I liked the idea. I joined him on the journey in 2016. We applied a lot of those um, foundational rules that I discovered in my sales career, but just thinking about it from a marketing perspective, applied that to ContentCal, and now 5 years later, we've become the fastest growing company in our space. So a very strange journey into marketing through basically through sales, but I got there in the end.
great. We would like to understand, Andy, a bit about your current company, ContentCal, and what philosophy you follow to keep up the spirit.
So ContentCal is a content marketing platform. Allows businesses of all sizes to organize, manage, plan, and create better content. So it's not just limited to social; it's all types of content: emails, blogs, press releases, etc. So basically providing enterprise grade tools, but accessible to any size of business, and that's been our driver of growth. In terms of like a marketing philosophy, I don't really subscribe to any other than more about values and principles, I would say, which is the number one value and principle is, and sorry for my language, no bullshit. So removing any of that marketing fluff, which you'll typically see a lot of businesses. So unless it's true, it's not going in anything. Um, Always being human and accessible. Like just being there for the kind of community that we've built and being someone that we're a business that people can turn to, not just because they need new software, but when they're struggling with their content marketing plan and their strategy. So being accessible and human like that has been, yeah, a real good growth driver and just a value that we uphold. And the final one in, and it's quite cliche, which is all about like adding value. We've invested hugely in educational content, and that's truly what we believe in. It is our educational content, as I'm sure we'll come on to talk about, that has driven our content marketing engine. As we're an inbound driven business, we're a marketing led business. At ContentCal, it's all been driven through the educational content that we've created.
We recently conducted an interview, Andy. So there, the speaker Digvijay Vanshu, he said when it comes to marketing, content is the king. So I
Hmm.
think that's where you are working for and eat and drink about the content.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Okay, so coming to the next question, what is the source of information to keep yourself updated in this industry, like industry updates?
Yeah, so from a social media perspective, I spend a lot of time looking at social media news on Social Media Today. That's my favorite website for the up-to-date and breaking social media news. From marketing practices in general, two other places. So a website called themarketingmeetup.com. They have the best marketing-led webinars. So that's my kind of education on other things marketing when I want to learn about something new about link building, PR, whatever. Those webinars are hugely valuable. So that's the marketing meetup. And also when I want to look at like case studies and examples, marketingexamples.com. Really simple title, but it's such practical, brilliantly like simple advice, but so brilliantly delivered. So for me, that they are the places I go to get really crystal clear marketing education.
I think this information would be really, really helpful for us, like for us and the fellow marketers who are doing MBA or maybe who are into 0 to 2 years experience in the marketing world.
Exactly, I agree.
Can you share the most successful campaign of yours handled so far, and at the same time, a failure campaign too? We'll try to learn from both of your experiences.
Yeah, so most successful has been it's not necessarily a campaign as such, but more of a initiative or a focus. It's been on our webinars. Our webinars have done incredibly well. Just in each month we generate 2,500 new leads through our webinars, of which are all educationally focused with guest speakers on each one. Working with guests on these webinars has been such a critical part of our strategy because it provides us with an additional promotion angle for our audience, right? Because the higher profile guests we get involved, the bigger the reach of our webinar. Um, so that's been really good, and we we are very, I mean, webinars are pretty common, but we curate them very heavily, as in like there is no sales stuff in them whatsoever. No one's allowed to pitch. It has to be very practical, advice driven content. And that's the beauty of content marketing. When people really understand it, it actually doesn't need to be salesy, because when you add value and you build trust, then ultimately people are sensible enough to understand your brand. They know it's a ContentCal webinar. They'll find you if they need your product. And it's about having that, being okay with that, not feeling like you have to just use every opportunity as a selling platform. And that's been, uh, I think we've always had that mindset here at ContentCal, but that's where I see a lot of businesses struggle when they think about content marketing. They always feel they have to be selling. Um, and then what has failed, because we fail a lot, one of the most recent things that have failed is I try to create a refer a friend program, because naturally we grow very well organically at ContentCal. Lots of people share lots of good things. And I wanted to try and find a way to engineer that to make it more, have more intent to say, help someone tell someone else. trying to engineer it for us. I know it worked brilliantly well in the likes of Dropbox. Hasn't worked for us as yet. So yeah, that campaign and that initiative was a bit of a wasted effort. So back to the drawing board with that one for good
Um,
learnings.
okay, so I would like to actually understand more about your webinar part. So, like as you said that you are actually capable to generate more and more leads, 2000, per month through your webinars. So, how you actually monitor that? First, how you cater to like invite such kind of guests to your webinars? And secondly, how do you monitor that? That I really want to understand about it.
Yeah, so we find the guests predominantly. I would say I find them through the two websites that I shared earlier. So when I'm watching a really good webinar on like the marketing meetup, I'll typically write, if the speaker's good, I will write to the speaker afterwards and say, we would love to host you as well.
That's a nice
Um,
gesture.
yeah, and the same thing when I see people writing really good things on marketingexamples.com. I will reach out to them and say this is a brilliant article, inspired me, would love to host you. That works really well as a strategy. Lots of people are very keen to share their advice and time, and it feels great to be invited to stuff. So that's how we find these people, and because over time, and don't get me wrong, it's not like we did our first webinar and hundreds of people joined. I think about 14 people joined our first webinar, but it's over the last year that it's built, and our reputation for like good quality stuff builds. So more and more people are like, oh, you should go to this because this was valuable. Because we all have no shortage of things that we could do, right? And no competition for so much competition for our time. It means that the good content gets referred and starts to rise to the top. And when I mean good content, it's about, like I've been saying throughout all of this, adding value. So that's how we find those people and how we kind of curate the content that we build. And then in terms of how we monitor it, we use a webinar platform called Demio, Demio, which works well. And what we have is an integration set up between Demio and HubSpot, which is our CRM. So naturally, anyone that subscribes or registers for a webinar on Demio, naturally those customer details backfill into HubSpot with their lead source, so we know where that contact came from. And naturally, in HubSpot, we manage the whole nurture process. So after someone's watched a webinar, we'll see what kind of are they an agency, they're a brand, a B2B, whatever. We know that, so we can serve them follow on relevant bits of content, whether it's our email newsletter or whatever. And then we take them on a journey, hopefully, to get them to a point of kind of subscribing. And then we track this all in our content marketing ROI tracker, of which I'm happy to share with anyone. It's just a Google sheet. But because of the data that we get out of HubSpot is so good, we can now track. And a year on into doing this webinar strategy, I know exactly what the economic value is of every single sign up to each individual webinar. So our average kind of economic value is about £50 for each person that signs up. Because what that means is that because we know our conversion rate for the people that join these webinars, how likely they are to purchase, the average size of plan size they're likely to purchase. And then when you look at those conversion rates plus average purchase prices, then it's very easy to assign a value to each individual contact that signs up. When you've got a value per each individual contact, it means you've got some justification around like investing. If we're going to be putting some more paid media or spend to promote a webinar further, we know that we're likely to see that return. Does that make sense?
Definitely. So that's a valuable information for us. Before moving ahead to our next question, I would like to break the ice and add some shower. I would like to understand about your diet plan, the secret of your fitness, and some personal, but yeah, again valuable for us. It's in the new normal and work from home concept. How did you manage to uh, be fit in all the scenario?
Well, I'll answer that one in not a very exciting way, in that the fact I am not very fit. I might look quite skinny, but I'm just lucky. So I don't. Yeah. I am not fit, and I've struggled. At times, I've very much struggled over the course of the last 18 months or however long we've been in this now. I have two young children, and being at home all day, every day is very hard whilst you're, you know, trying to help kind of coordinate this business and steer it in the right direction. So it's it's very hard. I have very little advice to share, I would say, because we're all
Okay.
finding through it. So yeah, not much to share on that one. And in terms of a life plan, um, to be honest, I would be lying if I said I had a particular plan as such. My only focus is to make this company the best it can be and turn it into $100 million business. And however long that takes, it takes. So I'm all in.
Wow. What is that one advice you would like to give to entry-level marketers or salesperson for their successful career?
Yeah, for early stage marketers, I would say being a continual student, learning as much as you can. There's just so many resources out there, which I've shared a couple of. So being a continual student, and that doesn't just apply for early stage marketers; it applies to anyone in the trade because it changes at a ridiculous rate, as you know. Um, and it can be sometimes frustrating as to how quickly things change because you think you've learned something, you think you've got something down, and something will change again. So being a continual student helps hugely. In terms of like early stages, though, something that I found was very useful in my early stages, even when I was struggling to get that marketing career that I wanted, as I mentioned earlier, is that I started a little side hustle, a little side business, a little website that I just started to practice my craft. I thought I understood an element of marketing, but there's something like marketing you can practice in your own time whenever you want, right? So you can build a little website, even if you've got nothing to sell. Build a personal blog. See if you can build a presence or a profile on a social platform. All of that, they are invaluable skills to learn. How you can build something from nothing is one of the most valuable skills anyone can have, right?
That's true.
Creativity. Yeah. So that would be my advice is that, don't rely on anyone else to help you or rely on a career that's going to help kind of educate and level you up. It's kind of your responsibility. Build something from
And
scratch, create something.
be
Yeah,
independent,
exactly that.
at least when it comes to learning phase.
Exactly.
Um, who is your mentor in this field? So you just look up to him or her and want to be like her or him, or maybe you look up to them when you are in deep trouble.
So yeah, I think so. I have my personal mentor, and I always recommend like someone to have some mentor. And I've been very lucky to find someone who is our chairman, a guy called Colin Smith. Um, I call him my work dad, and he's been
Okay.
through building businesses, selling businesses, um, and yeah, he's just someone that's there to listen when naturally you struggle with stuff over the course of life and you like try and figure out how do I get over this hurdle. Having someone like that's just there to offer some advice and just listen outside of your family is really powerful. Do I want to be like him? Not really though. I would like to I don't think that's a healthy thing to want to be like someone, because everyone's got their own unique skill sets. But having someone that's in your corner, outside of your immediate friends and family, and will tell you how it is, even when sometimes that truth is painful. Um, so I would definitely recommend that. I've been very, very lucky to find someone like that for sure. But there's actually, since there's a lot of mentorship platforms out there, something like Mentor Exchange now, where there's more willingness from individuals who are leaders within businesses. Something like the Marketing Academy. If I knew of that um, 10 years ago, who knows where my career would have gone. The Marketing Academy's been brilliant about inspiring the next generation of marketers, and CMOs from some of the biggest brands are part of that and wanting to inspire the next generation. I think it's just a nice kind of life cycle, and it's always been the case where people that are nearing the end of their career want to be able to feel like they're giving back. But now platforms exist to make that much more scalable. So yeah, Marketing Academy and Mentor Exchange is definitely a couple of things I would implore anyone to check out, whatever stage of their career they're in.
Great one. Great one. Uh, so, what do you think the most effective way of increasing a brand's online presence?
Um, so content marketing, basically, quite simply, like top two channels, right? So I was looking at some research, this came out in January, but the top two channels for how people discover and research brands, top one with like 54% is SEO search, so Google search. Um, and the second one with like 44% is social media. So a content strategy that transcends both social and long form content. Um, that is your way to increase your brand's presence, but it takes time. It absolutely takes time. So, um, but it's one of those things that you invest in over the long term, and that's a very important thing. Is like you need to invest over the long term. There are short term things you can do, right? Paid media is a good example of that. Any press campaigns are all good, but they're just short term spikes. Content marketing is your long term growth engine. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Okay. Any new tools or platform which you tried in recent times? Are you a go-to guy to try out new tools in the marketing world?
Yeah, I do like a marketing tool. Um, the one that we are playing with the most, and I think we're rolling out right now is well, two tools, one called Amplitude and one called Segment, which is all about how we analyze behavior of our both our app users and our website users. So we're quite early on in the journey of like proper conversion rate optimization and those minor tweaks, um, of which we'll probably talk about conversion rate optimization in a second. But yeah, we're early on in that, so amplitude and segment are good for that. But for a finance perspective, as we started to grow customers in lots of different markets and being able to get a really clear picture of different demographics and cohorts, yeah, Chart Mogul has been a brilliant addition to us for that, making it really clear to understand where our kind of heat maps are, where are we getting most customers, what region, location they're in, what's our kind of churn rate within each of those different regions. Super powerful. We used to have to build so many spreadsheets to try and find this information, but now we've got charts where we can just look at it and get the answer. So Chart Mogul's been really good for that.
So, our next question is a little bit a twisted one, not relevant to this, but yeah, yet important in this world. So, do you think email marketing still has a role to play in lead generation?
Absolutely. So in lead generation, less so, I would say. So it has a role to play, but not at the top of the funnel. So top of the funnel for me is all about content marketing, right? So as we've just been speaking about, webinars, blogs, social, whatever. So email is fantastic in nurturing, however. So and that's where email is a fundamental part of our strategy. But ultimately, it's how we've acquired that email address is the important thing, right? We've all been there and done that.
Yeah,
Bought a load of
yeah.
data, emailed it out. As far as I'm concerned, those days are done. And we've like that's is there are some successes you can get from that. And in the early days, I was guilty of doing that too, buying an email list and out it goes. But it's not a long-term strategy. But yes, email, when done right, is still incredibly powerful.
Okay. And can you just emphasize on your statement that when done right? So, what exactly, in which metrics do you refer this sentence? Uh,
Um, so the metrics that I care the most about, you mean?
like in email marketing. So when done in the correct way, so is it a kind of personalization what we do for the person doing a research about him and write the emails, or maybe the relevant what he really wants, uh, understanding the next person. Is it the way?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we've still got a lot of work to do on our email strategy. We've got a whole lot more intelligence to apply to it. But when people subscribe to our content, they'll typically answer a number of questions around like what challenges are you facing with content marketing? Are you using any other tools today? And that helps us build a picture of that organization. HubSpot already captures like their company size information and all that stuff and their job role and stuff because it pulls it in from LinkedIn. So we've actually got quite enriched data, even though the customer, we haven't forced them to put that information in. We've just asked them a couple of questions. We have, on the basis of these questions, we use HubSpot to run some lead scoring. So to score them out of 10 based on size of organization, how they've answered some of these questions. Um, when we score them in different ways, then naturally those leads that get scored in different ways go through slightly different journeys, right? The ones that are look like large organizations have a real need for what we do, naturally they're going to get funneled to a salesperson, and a salesperson is going to manually write that email to say, to make it super relevant, super tailored, of which you need a human to write it to be able to do that. But for the rest of it, naturally we'll have a number of different, like what we call email cadences, so sequences of emails associated based on the data that we've captured from those customers. It's all built in me. I make it sound more complex than it is. Really, it's all just built in HubSpot through automations. So it's quite simple to do. But I would say we're still pretty much, if there was 10 steps to doing email well, we're probably step 3, I would say. We got a whole load more to do, that's for sure.
Right. So what's your take on the conversion optimization, especially with the website traffic?
So my take on it is yes, it's very important, but it's not important in the early days. So marketers can get lost by trying to tweak minor metrics, so micro metrics, when actually the thing they should be focusing on is macro stuff. If you don't get enough in at the top of the funnel, there's no point trying to mess around with conversion rate optimization, because you can get lost for hours in it. Super important when you're at scale. So give you an idea, like only now, like I said to you earlier, are we at ContentCal 5 years into our journey generating 3,500 new leads a month. Only at this point now are we trying to increase our conversion rate. So so very important for the stage that we're at, for sure, because then there's meaningful gains to be get from. Like a 1% shift in conversion will be massive for us. So that's where we're going to be focusing a lot of energies this year, in maximizing what we've got, for sure. In the same way that I explained that we're going to be doing a lot more of our email, we're doing a lot more on CRO. But unless you've got that volume in, if you're running like a couple of hundred leads a month, well, actually, that depends on the size of the business, right? It depends how valuable those leads are. So I'm going to forget the number, but more, if you don't feel like you're at that scale yet, I would focus more on top of the funnel and demand generation as your primary point of concern.
I think, Andy, we have brought a lot of information and grabbed a lot things from you as far as this marketing world is concerned. But finally, it would be great if you could share any experience of yours or precious information with our audience, if you would like to share to be a successful marketer or salesperson.
Yeah, I mean, as a successful marketer or salesperson, I think I'll probably end up repeating what I said earlier. It's just, always be curious. That the level of curiosity has helped massively. So
Definitely.
questioning without being awkward, questioning most of the things you see, like why did this happen? Why did they do that? And trying to understand as much as possible. You know, I rate curiosity and creativity above pretty much anything else in terms of like skills. Um, because they're things I don't really mind. And I'm talking about like when we're hiring people, like I don't really care so much about like your prior experience. It's about the mindset. If you're naturally curious, you want to explore new things, and you're always looking for different ways to approach stuff, that is super powerful. And with that curiosity, and if you couple that with creativity, like an ability to apply a, a kind of non-standard response to a certain situation, then that's gold dust, to be honest. And it takes time to get there. And I would say, it's something I still challenge myself on. And the final thing to go away from is that this is something I read fairly recently, and I think it's worthwhile repeating it because um, naturally in marketing, you can put loads of stuff out, right? You could, there's no stuff you could do, but ask yourself whenever you're producing whatever it is, if it's a piece of content, a paid ad, or whatever, ask yourself, like, do I love it? And if the answer is no, don't do it. So it's too easy just to tick a box and get something out. Unless you truly feel proud of that, I suggest you don't put it out. There's enough content out there. Improved quality rather than quantity would be my advice.
I think that's a very powerful statement of today, I would say, and today's world also, that improve and quality rather than quantity, definitely. With this question, I would wrap up the session, but yeah, we are actually a lot to go on.